What's going on, boys and girls? It is Shane today with Blacktop Racing, and we are at event number 1 as far as championship points here at the WDCR. So today's date is 4:30, and we are going to do another course walk. So the start is very similar to how it was before. The truck is there. Start is here. So we're just going to actually make our way through this post, and I haven't walked the course yet, so this is going to be fun. Just kind of, you know, nice little course walk. So as we pull up here, we're just trying to find out where on earth the course is going. So we can see there's going to be a left-hander cutting down, but what I'm actually trying to do is see how aggressive this left-hander is, and if we can do a car wall. We just pull on over out here, rev it up, and launch. But the lights are right there, so it wouldn't even matter. All right, so right here, this is where the starter is going to get you. He's going to be on the left-hand side, but what I'm looking for is where we're going. So we're going to pivot around to the left, turning left, and we're going to make our way through here and then making a right-hand sweeper, which, as you can see, that's downhill. So what we want to do is actually try and punt that cone right there, setting it up so we have a soft corner, and then making our way around to the right, which it looks like it's actually a slalom. So let's go ahead and get started. So as I'm coming over here, I'm actually sitting over on the right-hand side to soften this corner as much as possible. If I go over to the left too much, then that's going to be too hard to turn. So I'm just eyeing out, trying to hit that gap. So I'm going to try and turn in and actually try to make this as straight as possible. Now, there's no point in adding distance, because again, if I'm over here, then I have to fight to come back, and by the time I pass that cone, I'm adding distance. It's not that much to gain, quite honestly. So just take that mid to tight line, come on over, keep it tight, and I'm actually looking through the corner, seeing where I gotta go. You can see that cone is telling me that I have to stay on the left, but the next cone is telling me that I have to go on the right-hand side. So what I'm gonna do is, this corner here falls off against me. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and hug this guy, hug this cone right here. And as I'm trying to stay tight approaching this cone, it's going to understeer. So let it naturally understeer, and this bump right here is going to push you off even more and put me right where I want to, which is going to be about right here as I'm attacking this, this little lane change. It's not even a slalom, quite honestly. All right, so as we're going through here, we're trying to see where the course goes. So keep your eyes up and look through where you want to go. From here, I'm actually looking through over to this gate over here, because that's where I have to go and then make that left. So eyes back here, because this is actually fairly easy. Just want to see how on earth I'm going to get from here to that gate and then make that left-hander. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of add a little bit of distance here, and I'm gonna introduce you guys to the virtual cone. Josh Luster and Noel Leslie loves the virtual cones. And what the virtual cone is that although we see those cones there, I'm gonna visualize where I have to turn a lot earlier. So although I'm adding some distance, as you can see, I'm adding some distance right now. It's mainly so that way I can backside and do a very late apex on this cone. So I'm just going to take a midline, start diving in here, let the car slide. Somewhat as you heard as far as the dirty turn, just loading up the front with some braking and then sliding the car around so that way you can take this midline here. I can then be tight all the way through, because there's nothing to gain by actually going out wide here at all. So I'm gonna get close to this cone. As you're carrying some speed over on that right-hander that we just passed, you're gonna be closer to this cone, but you wanna look through where you gotta go. So as we're right here, our eyes are not fixated on that cone. We're actually trying to scan around and see where we gotta go. So this left-hander is similar to last week, where we were trying to get out to that wall. So here is actually slower than last week's corner on entry. So I'm gonna come in, not necessarily just hug because I'm gonna be carrying some speed, but I'm gonna trail brake approaching here. And I'm gonna eye where I wanna go, which is that 3-cone gate, and then that left-hander, which is similar to last week, pitching down the hill. So as we come here, you can see that there is a lot of runoff from this cone and this gap to that gate. So don't be afraid as far as getting on the gas. You're gonna try and hit this cone, but stay on the throttle so that way you can actually come out to this wall, because that's where you wanna be anyway. Now, some people are gonna look at this left-hander coming up and they're gonna say, hey, I wanna go over to the right. Yeah, there's no real need to, because as you can see, where we're at right now, walking straight, we actually have a good distance away from the cone to look downhill and actually make this turn. Not easy, but pretty good. So adding some distance here, going over to the right, to me, is just adding distance. And now look at our angle. I would have to turn even more to make this turn. Versus if we're looking at it straight on, this is just a 90-degree angle. So I'm coming around here, I'm gonna load up the front, try to get this car to pivot right here, so that way it opens up. So if I'm right here on this cone staying disciplined, then I'm pretty good. I can backside that triple, the first triple. That means I can backside the next one. If I carry too much speed and end up all the way over here, that means, look at this, now I'm gonna have to fight. Now everything's lined up. I'm gonna have to fight to get back over to the left. So just remember, it's all about position, being one step ahead, so that way you can maximize the next area. All right, so if we did this right, we should be able to backside this cone on our right. And then as we can see, going down this hill, we wanna make sure that we backside this cone that we're approaching right now. But you don't have to kill yourself to do it, because as you can see, the runoff from here to that gate is a lot. But what we wanna do is, if you backside, or if you just get through here, what you wanna do is try and backside the wall. So now that may sound where you're like, hey, well, it's just a gate, right? And all I gotta do is get through it. But the thing is that if you backside this wall as we're coming through, you can see that the next element after that, you have that cone on the right with the triple, and then there's another 3-wall gate. So right here is gonna be tricky for some folks, and this is gonna test you because what's in front of us? It's a pole. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. However, it's about 150 feet away. So unless you try to be a hero, just don't do it. But right here, if we backside the cone that we just passed, we can actually just carve right around these two with no problems. It's more of a lane change, an aggressive lane change. So you can still stay disciplined through here if you have the grip, feel it out, and just be aggressive here. So as I'm planning on going full throttle through all this, car may get a little sideways as far as it loading up, going down the hill, but that's not a problem to me, because you have time. You just got to get the car square by the time you're coming through here. Because what's the next element? The next element is a right-hander. So you can see it falling off, going downhill, and it's going to wrap around. So what I'm actually thinking about is that cone there. So that cone is telling me that I have to pinch in. So we have this big right-hander, and I have to realize, hey, once I get past that cone there, I have this distance to get over on the right for a slalom climb. So I'm gonna stay tight at this area here. Actually, let's ponder this for a second. Nope. Yeah, I'm gonna stay tight, kind of let the car go down this hill towards this wall. Trail brake it as I'm making this right and try to hug these cones. The only reason why I'm over here is not that I'm worried about this cone as much as that cone. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more parallel with this cone here, so that way I can go up the hill a lot more efficiently. If I'm too tight, then I'm facing down the hill, and then trying to make that uphill climb, it becomes a pain in the ass. So try to get parallel with this cone. We're eyeing that just to get our depth, but remember, I have to try and get on the right side of that cone. So as we're going down this hill, it's gonna fall off between that bottom cone and this cone right here. So let it, and you're gonna be going not super fast here, so you have enough time to still backside that cone. So the important part is come around here, And regardless if you're over or not, you're climbing up the hill, and as you're accelerating, this is realistically where you're gonna be at. You want to try your best to get behind on the backside of this cone. It'll just be a lot easier. As you can see, as we're climbing up the hill. So if you don't backside this cone, it looks like you're all right because we're going uphill. You just got to make sure that you backside that second one. Now, since we're at FedEx, there's some things that's going to happen here, which is this little water seepage. So you may say, oh, I got this corner, no problem. And then your tires are wet and your rear is going to start coming around. So I'm actually going to try and drive around that wet spot, quite honestly. So you have to keep that in mind depending on where you're at. So it is a straight slalom, as you can see. And one of the things that we tend to do, I didn't do that from the first few cones, is actually pace them. So from this cone to that cone, I'm just gonna pace since it's straight after that cone in front of us. So 1, 3, 4, 5. 16, 17, 18, 21, 22, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 31. So 31. So in that one, I can accelerate all the way up, no lifting. 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 18, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29. 29, I can still flat foot this going uphill. 2, 3, 6, 7. So although I was counting this one, I'm not really too worried about it. It looks like you'll be able to flat foot this entire uphill. I am turning around just to see and just remember how many cones there are. But what I'm gonna do, as soon as I get here, I'm not worried about backsiding this cone per se. I'm actually just trying to accelerate through here. So if I'm a little late on this cone, that is fine. What's actually important is what's coming up is this left-hander up top on the hill. So as we go up here, we can try and soften this cone, this left turn, but I'm actually just gonna take kind of a midline. You see how we have the 3 cones there? I'm gonna just look at the one in the middle, so the second from the right. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and then carve this whole left-hander. So as we're right here, there's a lot of pincher cones. So here we're keeping out on the right. And then the next cone there, we have to pinch back in just like last week. So this element is very similar to last week. So you get another try at it. So here, softened up this corner, gonna go ahead and hug this corner. I'm mainly worried about that cone there, not so much the entry cone, because I just wanna fit through here. So I'm gonna go ahead and carve this. Partial throttle throughout, maybe like a 3/4 throttle, just feeling out the front end grip of the car, and this rise at the crest actually unloads the rear. So I'm not full throttling it because the rear is going to be unloaded. So especially from last week. So I'm actually just going to partial throttle through, and then as soon as I get past, start full throttling through. So it's just that rise right where Lee is. That rise that you want to be careful on. But once you pass that guy, you should be full throttle. No reason why. Why not? This element is similar to last week as well, but it's not a slalom all the way down the hill. So it is a left-hander coming up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a midline. I don't wanna be too tight on this cone, because then that angle for that cone there is just gonna be a little too tight to make this left-hander. So I'm actually gonna take a midline, and then I'm looking through to make sure that I get on the back side of that cone. So this gap is what I'm worried about. So as we fit through here on the left-hander, taking a midline, not getting too pinched, because I'll actually walk it. So if you're too tight on this cone, as you're coming into your braking, you can see that angle from here to there is a lot sharper. And if you were to come over and soften up this corner, you can actually carve right around this corner with no problems. So all about positioning. So as you're approaching here, just say at least a midline, and then start staying tight here because if you start staying tight here, these bumps are going to push you off to where you want to be. Where I want to be is backsiding this this cone here. So it's going to bump me. There's more bumps here. It's going to bump me again, and then it's going to get me a little bit where I want to be, which is backsiding this cone. All right, so once we got through this guy, it's just a little lane change down the hill to a right-hander and then the finish. So not too tough to negotiate this. Just get through this area. This cone isn't super important, just don't clip it. But what you're trying to do is, if you actually focus on backsiding that cone, it was a straight run as far as on throttle down this hill. So since I'm full throttle down this hill, as soon as I get up to this cone, I'm gonna actually think about, all right, it's a right-hander down to the finish. So I wanna backside this cone, soften out the right-hander so that way I can full throttle it down the hill. So I'm gonna look at this one, not that close, but I'm gonna try and backside it to soften up this right-hander. Come out just a little bit, not too much. I'm just wanting to soften this up. Don't start climbing up the hill, because if you start climbing up the hill just to get a good run, you're adding distance and you're trying to pitch the car too much. So I'm just going to take a mid so that way I can dive downhill. You can see that if I'm here and starting to dive down the hill, it works out great, versus if I am pinched over here, you can already see that that's a hard turn. And if I'm all the way up on the hill, yeah, this angle may look good, but I just added a bunch of distance. So you have to kind of figure out what's good for you. A midline is the way to go. Josh Lester. So realistically, you're gonna come out to this cone, which is not a problem, and then you'll be able to throttle out to the finish. So one thing about these finishes, guys, don't be a hero. The distance is 150 to 200 feet before any immovable object, but you want to stay safe, being that pole, that curb, and everything down below. So if you're right here and you're dancing it too much, just go ahead and just ease off and get control of the car. So here's my finish. We have a lot of braking zone down here, but you want to just keep in mind, hey, don't be a hero in the stop box area, okay? Just, there's nothing to gain at that point. All right, so hopefully that helped you guys out. You'll see my runs or another fast run if I suck today. So hopefully you guys had some fun with that. I'm about to hit up the drivers meeting right now. So thanks for joining us. So like or subscribe. Tell your friends about it. This is just going to be a new series that I'll try and do for each event and tying in the runs right afterwards. Thanks to Agile Auto for the sponsorship, along with Apex Junkie. You can check them out down below. All right, take care, guys. It's Danny. He's already taking a cone. Dang, what are they doing?